Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Amazing.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. You know what time it is. It's time for depressing news. And we've got plenty of it, including right-wing calls for violence once again. Yes, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about QAnon forcing a doctor to quit. Great. We have Lauren Boebert. Being Lauren Boebert, of course. The irony there is just fantastic. You're going to love that story. And then we have, of course, something that shouldn't be a surprise, but seems to be a surprise to mainstream media. And there is actually a surprise in that story for me as well. The fact that mainstream media is actually talking about political donations. Interesting. Now, this is in regards to Joe Manchin and his opposition to Build Back Better. So you're not going to be surprised that he got a lot of money. No, the real surprise, of course, is who's reporting on it. Interesting. And then how messed up is our insurance system? Pretty messed up. And I have another story to prove it that shows you that even though you could do all the right things, insurance companies, health insurance is terrible, and it's a scam, and it's awful. And I'm going to show you, again, a story that exemplifies that perfectly. Perfectly. All right. So, is it Lauren Boebert? I don't care. It's Boebert. It's Lauren Boebert. That's what it is. You know why? Because I'm a child. All right. Anyway. I know. I'm quite terrible. But that's okay.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
I say names wrong all the time. Like, so wrong. So wrong. One of the stories that I wanted to get to today that I'm not going to be able to because I just found it way too late. I'll probably do it tomorrow. Not America Fest. Sorry, I think it's the Bill O'Reilly Trump get-together that had happened, that had just finished up. Some attendants are like, we've been poisoned. Wait, no, it's a maskless gathering of unvaccinated people. And they're like, I think somebody pumped anthrax into this gathering. I don't know what happened, but I'm suddenly feeling very sick. hurts. Oh, it hurts so much. Oh my, it burns. It burns so badly. My God. All right, anyway. That's a story. I pretty much just gave it away. But I'm going to talk about it tomorrow anyway, because that's too good of a story to avoid. All right, if you haven't already, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Helps us out greatly, and helps us get out to new audiences, hopefully. And so I really appreciate it when you do. All right. Anyway, let's go to the first story. Let's talk about how QAnon forced a doctor out of his career. Disastrous. Now, there's a Reddit post that's going around that's actually gone viral about a former physician, and it's getting a lot of attention because it shows what medical professionals are dealing with when it comes to the pandemic, and specifically pandemic disinformation. For example, from QAnon. And so now the post is actually from our QAnon casualties. So that is a depressing place to go. Although there are some good stories of people coming back from the QAnon brink, those stories are few and far between. They're actually incredibly rare. More often, you're going to hear stories like this, where you had a doctor who obviously, of course, did not give their name, but he wrote that after more than 3 decades as a physician, the Q maniacs have succeeded in driving me out of providing care to patients. Now, he explains, of course, that he's still going to be in the medical field, but he's not going to take care of patients. He's going to go to a job where he doesn't have to interact with sick people at all. Now he starts out by saying this. After, let's see. I've been able to deal with the years of patients who attended Google Medical School and the hours wasted explaining things such as why cinnamon cannot be used to treat diabetes, or that garlic and beetroot can't beat HIV. And Lord save me from essential oils. But then went on to explain that it wasn't all of that. No, he can handle all of that. But when COVID came, and QAnon specifically came, well, that was too much to deal with. And so, let me read that. Actually, before I do, when you do the news like I do, you're kind of disconnected, honestly. Because, look, when I read about, for example, how over 850,000 Americans have died of COVID-19, those are just it. You can't wrap your, again, those numbers are so big that we as human beings can't really wrap our little monkey brains around it, okay? It's so much to process that we can't imagine 850,000 Americans dead. Now, you can imagine people that are close to you, that are dead. You can imagine, small groups of people. But 850,000, I mean, it's hard for us to imagine. It's like trying to imagine the vastness of space. It's very, very difficult to put into context those kinds of numbers. But again, that's where the disconnect is. Cold, hard, unsympathetic numbers. Okay. Now, this story is important, and it's interesting because it puts it into a little bit more perspective. Okay, a human perspective about the patients and the doctors that have to treat these patients, even the ones that didn't believe that COVID was actually real. Again, maybe that's part of the fact that human beings are somehow not able to process things like a pandemic, which have affected millions of people across the world. And you look at those numbers, you're like, no way. There's no way it can come here, and if it comes here, there's no way it's actually real. But it is real. It is real. And so now, as he writes, the horrific deaths are beyond what you might imagine. The patients emerge almost unrecognizable to their families, if they even survive. Now, since June, he said, I've never seen a horrible case of someone who was vaccinated. So he's dealing with all unvaccinated people. I have seen people struggling to breathe through lungs that have hardened to near uselessness, begging us in their ignorance to give them the vaccine now. We can tell, almost without fail, which ones will die when they come through the door of the ICU. But we do everything in our power to keep them alive, knowing that we're basically just stretching out the inevitable. So again, that's the job of a medical professional, to do everything in their power to try to keep somebody alive. And again, in the case of COVID, they know what's going to happen. Now, again, as mentally difficult as seeing that carnage has to deal with, that's not actually the worst part about this. Now, he says, look, I can deal with all that. I can deal with seeing the effects that it has on people. I've worked in medicine for a very, very long time. It's just something that you kind of get used to when you're dealing with the sick and you're dealing with the dying. But in this case, and even with the pandemic, as difficult as it is, but he had a really difficult time dealing with the families. So in fact, he said, what I can no longer handle is the screaming, not from the patients, but from the families. They're not screaming in anguish or in recognition of how their foolishness has led them to the point. No, they're screaming at me because, you see, I am part of the global conspiracy to commit genocide. If only I would give them 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C, even though the body can absorb a maximum of 100 milligrams a day, with the rest creating the world's most expensive urine. They would be saved. Or hydroxychloroquine, or ivermectin. Those have never been studied, they assure me. And when I tell them that they have been, they snap that I don't know what I'm talking about. So, look, you can understand the frustration that this man or person, man or woman, it doesn't say, but that this person is feeling. And so they're saying, look, hey, look, we can't just give them things that aren't tested or tried, or proven. We can't do that. We're not going to do that. We're here to try to save lives, but there's only so much we can do. In reality, a lot of what, when it comes to COVID is prevention. And you can prevent this by getting vaccinated. Nonetheless, these people come in and they say, no, Joe Rogan knows more than you do. Podcaster hosts, YouTubers, they know better than you. Who is a doctor, who has spent his or her entire life dedicated to the pursuit of medicine. No. Dr. Google, right-wing website, American Patriots Against COVID.org, if that even exists, it probably does, they know more than you. The RNC knows more than you. My political preference knows more than you. But they don't. Again, it's kind of ridiculous. It's sort of like, I kind of liken it, even though this is not a perfect analogy, it's sort of like me telling a mechanic, hey, this is how you fix a broken head gasket. Well, obviously, I don't know how to do that. I could look it up, but unless I've been doing it for years, I'm probably going to make a mistake. I'm probably going to mess it up. Or actually, this is a better comparison. Me telling a mechanic that, no, I know, not only do I know how to fix a broken head gasket, I know how to fix it better than you. You see, how do you really fix it is by pouring a glass of chocolate milk into the engine. That will fix it. You're doing it wrong. You're going to blow up the engine if you do that. I have the real cure. See, I saw it on a video on YouTube once, that if you just pour a thing of chocolate milk right into your engine, right into the oil, the oil fill, that's going to fix your head gasket. No, that's ridiculous. And by the way, it's also akin to telling the mechanic that he's part of a gigantic conspiracy to destroy not just my engine, but everyone's engine if you don't pour that chocolate milk in there right this fucking second. And again, the analogy even fails because it turns out that broken head gaskets are not the same as a virus that is transmissible. Like your car can't give a broken head gasket to another car. And so, but you get it. You get it. It's basically telling somebody, like you who knows nothing about that, because you haven't done that for your career. Everybody has different strengths, and it's not like I'm calling the person stupid who doesn't know. Ignorant, yes, but that's not even used as a pejorative. You just don't know because you haven't taken the training. And 1 or 2 videos is not going to be a substitute for 8 years of medical school. And so you get it. You get it. But now he asks this in response to those people. Quote, hey, if we're the ones responsible for killing their loved ones, then why the hell have they brought them to the hospital in the first place? Why throw them to our clutches? Now, I know the answer. They know it's all lies, but their egos are so huge, they can't bring themselves to admit it. Oh, well, there it is. 100%. So now, again, that alone was not enough to break him. There was a specific breaking point that he got to. And he tells the story specifically. Now, he explained that one time, good couple of weeks ago, he encountered a family, a husband, a father, 38 years old, a wife, 2 daughters, and a son. They were all of age to get vaccinated, but none of them were. Now, the father got COVID very, very badly. Severe case of COVID. All right. Now, it was so bad that they had to put him on a ventilator. And so, look, when you're on a ventilator, you have to be, basically sedated and paralyzed. So they give you a bunch of drugs, and paralytics and everything, so that you can basically let the machine breathe for you, because you can't get enough oxygen otherwise. So now, when he was going through that with the severe COVID, he had a blood clot pooling in his leg. They had to amputate his leg to save his life, or to try to save his life. So, gone. There goes a leg. But it gets worse. So now, the doctor remarked about how when he was awake, the man had a look of terror in his eyes, and that he was crying from the pain. And he said, look, it was nothing new, but the begging over and over, don't let me die. And please give me the vaccine. And he said, all I could tell him is that we won't let you die. Although I never said we might not have any choice in that matter. And I told him repeatedly that it was just too late for the vaccine. Now, I've noticed this in a lot of these cases. Anti-vaxxers, they think they're going to be fine, safe from the virus. I'm young and healthy. I'm 38 years old. I'm also 38 years old. Now, look, even at my age, yes, we're fairly young, healthy, doing well for ourselves, got energy, living our lives. We're in the kind of the prime of our lives still. All right. But this guy thinks he's invincible, gets COVID and finds out not so invincible, as we all find out in some ways, sometime or another. And when he gets that severe COVID, the first thing they ask for, can I get the vaccine? Please give me the vaccine. Please, please, please. Now, of course, it's too late for it. Vaccines aren't cures, they're prevention. They help prevent serious illness. They could have turned that COVID case, if it, had been a breakthrough infection, which happens, would have turned that breakthrough into a mild case in which this man would have been able to survive. But unfortunately, that's not what happened, because this man is dying, and he knows he's dying. And so one of his last wishes It's to have his family come in to see him so he could say goodbye. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because his family refuses to wear a mask. They just refuse. Now, the nurse had told the wife that her husband was dying and that was begging to see them. But all she cared about was wearing a mask or not wanting to wear the mask. She would only come if she and her daughters did not have to wear those masks. The nurse then came to me and told me that the wife wanted to speak to me. This is the doctor writing. I got on the phone and she ordered me to cure him with ivermectin and vitamin C and D. I explained to her that these do not work. They have been extensively studied, and the amount of ivermectin needed to treat even mild COVID would kill a human being. Once again, I was told I was ignorant. I asked her to come down to the hospital to bring her children, to at least wait outside. Somehow she agreed. Now, between the time of that phone call and the family showing up, the man unfortunately passed away. He then went to the parking lot to meet the wife anyway to give her the bad news. He said, I stepped outside, went to the wife, identified myself, told her that I was sorry, that we had done everything that we could, but her husband had passed a few minutes earlier. I did not manage to get the words out of the sentence fully out of my mouth when I had felt the first strike, my face, and heard the screamed words, "You murderer." I fell backwards, tripped, and plopped onto the pavement, the back of my head striking asphalt. I vaguely heard the words being screamed about ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, and God knows what else. I heard, "You could have saved him if you listened." I had tasted blood from the top of my lip. It took a moment to know it was seeping from my nose, which she had broken. My mask was getting wet and thus useless. Security grabbed her. They were getting ready to call the police, but I knew if I did, I would become the next national target for the Q maniacs. I told them just to put her in her car. I wasn't going to press charges. I went back to the hospital. I started looking for a new job that next day. I will never treat a patient again. Thank God. I mean, again, what a horrible story. Just absolutely awful. For everybody involved, by the way. The conspiracy theories believed by this family. The hydroxychloroquines and the vitamin C drips, the ivermectin, all that stuff, the belief that those, which again are not proven cures, would somehow have saved this man's life, when in reality, a free vaccine would have. The free vaccine that they refused to take, that the man had begged in his 11th hour with his final dying breaths, is difficult to say where to push out. Begging for the vaccine that they could have taken, but they chose not to. Ignorance killed this man, not the doctor. Ignorance. Conspiracy theories. They kill. They kill. And again, this is why it's important to talk about the human cost of the pandemic. Again, we talk about all these numbers, these big numbers, how many percentage points the cases go up or down. And we talk about how many people have died this week in COVID, and it goes over our heads. But these are the personal stories. And by the way, we also don't address the stress endured by medical professionals now, who work tirelessly and have worked tirelessly since the beginning of this thing to keep people alive. And the strain it takes on them, the toll it takes on other people, mentally and physically. And of course, we also need to talk about the medical professionals who, before the vaccine was available, still risk their lives every day. Many of them lost their lives to try to keep people alive. This is the actual toll. And to get treated like this because of unhinged online conspiracies? I mean, and this isn't the only story like this. There are hundreds more stories, thousands more, probably just like this, waiting to be told. And you can add that to the stories of people losing family members, uncles, brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, all of these conspiracies to online insanity. And then eventually to COVID itself, in a lot of cases. That's the danger here. This is the danger that we're facing when it comes to online disinformation. When it comes to these conspiracy theories, which are causing real damage to human beings. And by the way, as I pointed out in many different instances, the people pushing these are doing so in order to make a profit. Imagine that, right? In this society, where again, you value your own personal profits over the lives of human beings. And you go and you convince people for money that no, don't take the thing that actually has been proven to work. Take the thing that hasn't been proven to work. Because trust me, I know better than the doctors. So just give me my money and I'll give you whatever charm or trinket or, medicine that you think you want. And whatever happens to you, happens to you. I don't care as long as I got my money. It's disgusting what is happening today. I wish we could bring people back to reality. I wish we could root out the bad actors. I'm not quite sure how. The only thing I can think to do is to continue telling the truth and telling the perspectives of the people who are living through this. I think that's the only way that I can try to fight back against the lies. And all I can do is hope that people start to see the light and finally realize what they need to do for their health. And that's to follow the medical science, the actual science, and stop listening to grifters. Okay. Whew. Let me read a couple of comments here. Just saw one earlier. It's a sad story. It's a really sad story. All right. You know what? We'll move on here. Let's go to Louis Goebert. We now have prominent Republicans that are openly endorsing violence. For example, Representative Louis Goebert, who was recently caught on tape saying that he believes that conservatives are getting close to the point where they can start using their guns to take over. Now, Goebert was a speaker at the Turning Point USA's America Fest. And he was recorded by the Undercurrents Lauren Windsor, who always does an amazing job, by the way, catching conservatives saying horrible things or what they actually think and believe. Here's that video.
Much for doing everything you do. I was there on the 6th, and thank you for fighting for all of us, man. Was there more we could have done?
Yeah, there's a lot more, but it needs a lot more people doing it than just a handful of us.
Keep fighting for us.
Yeah, they just so.
And are we getting towards like Second Amendment solutions at some point? It's gonna keep happening. Or are we gonna fix it? You think we are?
Well, I'm still in it because I think we can.
Thank you for fighting. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Second Amendment solutions. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Now, you know what that means, right? It means killing people in government. It means grabbing your guns and doing a violent coup. Now, Windsor also reported that 2 hours earlier than with that interaction with Louis Goebert, they had filmed Sebastian Gorka. And so, again, this isn't the only time we have heard at a Turning Point USA event, people talk about doing violence. In fact, Gorka is going to answer a question here from a member of the audience, and you're going to see that this is a theme, asking, when are they going to be able to use the guns?
The Second Amendment is designed to basically retaliate against the government whenever they go tyrannical. And then my question is, when do we draw that line where we overstep and say no more and take it back?
Yeah, the Second Amendment has nothing to do with whitetails or deer season. Let's be very clear. It's not even about defending your home, which of course you have a right to. The Second Amendment is the final guarantee of your freedom, period. And people ask me, so when's the Civil War going to start? When's it going to start? And I say, slow down.
No, he says, slow down. Well, that's not what members of your audience are talking about. They're asking you, when can we use the guns? When can we pull out the guns? When can we start shooting people? Because we think the government is tyrannical. When are we going to stop? When are we going to start doing it? Please tell us, tell us. Oh, whoa, 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 not yet, not yet. But don't worry, we'll tell you. In fact, look, Madison Cawthorn was asked the same question. When are we going to do that? And he's like, well, we're getting close. I mean, we're not quite there yet, so hold on. But we're getting closer. We're getting closer. And as I mentioned before, this is not the only Turning Points USA video where we have caught that audience talking about bringing out guns. In fact, there was that famous interaction with Charlie Kirk and one member of the audience. In fact, let me show you that again.
At this point, we're living under corporate and medical fascism. This is tyranny. When do we get to use the guns? No, and I'm not, that's not a joke. I'm not saying it like that. I mean, literally, where's the line? How many elections are they going to steal before we kill these people?
So, no, no, hold on. No, stop, hold on.
When do we get to kill the people? When do we? When do we get to? They want to use it. They're dying to use it, to shoot people. That's what they want. And how much clearer does it have to be for you to understand that they are primed and ready to do political violence against their so-called enemies? They want to shoot people. They want to kill people. And again, a lot of it is right-wing media. As I keep pointing out, right-wing media, right-wing politicians that keep saying, the left, it's the enemy, it's the enemy, it's the enemy. You got to kill the enemy. They hate you. They hate America. They hate this country. They hate the Constitution. They want to kill your babies. They want to take all your money and give it to those people. You know who you're talking about. You know what I'm talking about? Those people, the not true Americans. They're taking all your money. They're trying to take away your political power, despite the fact that they are still the majority in this country and have the political power. But no. Are you surprised at all that there are some people who hear this rhetoric and think, oh, hell no, I'm going to take my guns. I'm going to get my guns. I'm going to get my guns. What are they doing during the Obama administration? They said they're coming for your guns. They're coming for your guns. So what happened? People bought more guns. What did Obama do? Didn't come for your guns. In fact, we have more gun rights than we ever had before, and more guns. But no. They want to keep arming themselves, which, by the way, is really, really good for the gun manufacturers, because they make a ton of money on this. Gun groups make a ton of money off this. Right-wing politicians make a ton of money off this. Can you see the theme here? Can you see the theme? Money and power, money and power, money and power. That's all it is. Money and power. And fear creates that. And what are they going around and doing? They're spreading fear about Americans, about their fellow Americans, their citizens, and the people that might just disagree with them politically. And so this is how political violence happens. And so, look, January 6th, I understand. That was the start. I really worry about what's going to actually happen in the future. Again, you can go back to this poll that shows that the right-wing political violence is a major problem here. There's potential to be a lot of political violence from the right wing. Almost 4 in 10 Republicans agreed with this statement. Because things have gotten so far off track, true American patriots may have to resort to violence in order to save the country. Again, they want to have people take up arms against their neighbors, their friends, family in some cases. This is horrifying. This is absolutely horrifying. And there are people that are pushing for that. They're on the far right. Now, most Americans, regular people, don't really care about this, right? They don't really, no, I can't say that they don't care about this. They don't think this way. They don't agree with this. They're like, no, of course, political violence is no. No, we're not at all interested. But then you look at Republicans, 4 in 10. 4 in 10. Who's being radicalized here? Who's being radicalized? Again, the people pushing for that are on the far right. I mean, Tim Pool is a great example. He's like, oh, no, I'm centrist. I'm the center. I'm where America is. By the way, do you know that there's civil war coming? Civil war's coming. It's coming. It's maybe already here. Look at my right-wing audience. I mean, but I'm totally a disaffected liberal. Bullshit. Polling data shows that 31% of American adults wrongly believe that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. If 39% of them believe that violence could be justified, that translates into 12% overall, or about 31 million American adults who believe the election is stolen and sympathize with violence. That is a staggering amount of people. 31 million people. Now, of course, I'm not saying that all 31 million people would join in and create some massive army. No. A very, very small percentage of them would actually do it, would actually have the balls to do it. But out of that, how much a percentage, right? 1%, 5%, or even like 0.5%, you're still looking at hundreds to maybe even thousands of people that are armed and willing to possibly do stochastic right-wing terrorism in this country. And I'm talking about lone wolf political terrorism against their political opponents. Democrats, Democratic politicians, abortion clinics, rallies for racial justice, you name it. You name it. That's why this is a problem. This is scary. And now, what's worse is you openly have congressmen out there. Louis Gohmert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Madison Cawthorn. You have people talking about how political violence, yes, we should absolutely, Second Amendment solutions for sure. And by the way, Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, was also talking about Second Amendment solutions in relation to Hillary Clinton. So, I mean, again, this is incredibly concerning and just absolutely damning. All right. Let's go to Lou and Boebert. And of course, here we go, more fashy stuff from the right. Ugh. Representative Lauren Boebert pretty much wants to become the next Joe McCarthy and to criminalize free speech. In fact, recently at AmericaFest, Boebert talked about wanting to add a new government agency. Yes, the small government conservative wants a government agency out there to police un-American speech. This is what she said.
And you're right. The Democrats have so many anti-Semitic remarks on their account, and even anti-American remarks. Yeah. I mean, when are we going to have a State Department that combats elected representatives hating the country that they were elected to serve? Right. So there's a lot more that we could focus on, but they would like to distract from that.
Of course.
Anybody else find it ironic that she is literally calling for the government to kill First Amendment protections? Oh yeah, let's create a government agency to go after our political opponents for speech that I don't like. Really? And by the way, she wraps it up in anti-Semitic, I care so much about anti-Semitism. You realize people like Lauren Boebert and evangelicals in America only really care about Israel and Jewish people so that they can fulfill their insane end times prophecy where the Jews go back to Israel, kick off the end times with a gigantic war, which kills most of the people on earth, including all of the Jews who do not repent and join Christianity. Cuckoo. They're insane. And yet she's so concerned about anti-Semitism. Oh my gosh, I am so concerned about that because I have a beef with Ilhan Omar. It's ridiculous. But anyway, she wants to kill free speech, essentially. Again, free speech is the ability to criticize the country and the government without the government arresting you. Again, one of the most ironically anti-American things that she has ever said. Now, do I want her arrested or investigated for it? No, that would be un-American. Now, I would like, however, for them to look into why she was publicly tweeting out her and Nancy Pelosi's position during the January 6th riots. You know, the time where unhinged MAGA chuds were making their way through the Capitol building, searching for Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence so they could, what were they chanting? What were they chanting? Hang my pants? Is that what it was? Hang my pants? No, it was hang Mike Pence, as in the Vice President of the United States. And they were also after Nancy Pelosi, and as well as people like AOC and other politicians that they don't like. So, yeah, weird. To me, it seems to be like it's rather anti-American to try to overthrow the government based on a lie after a lawful election. That you don't even care about the results of a lawful election, and you choose to use violence and intimidation to try to stop the result that you didn't like. Maybe that might be worthy of a committee. Oh, right, there is a committee. Oh, but Lauren Boebert hates that committee. Oh, that's right. You don't say. Now, here's the thing about the committees that she has proposed, or the government agency or whatever, right? Now, there was one. It was called the House Un-American Committee, ironically. Now, that was created back in 1938 to investigate disloyalty and subversive activities on the parts of private citizens, public employees, and those organizations suspected of having communist ties. In 1947, the committee held 9 days of hearings into communist or alleged communist propaganda and influence in Hollywood. Boy, it sounds like this is something that they do today, doesn't it? And as a result, more than 300 artists, including directors, commentators, actors, and screenwriters, were boycotted by studios. People like Charlie Chaplin, Orson Welles, Alan Lomax, Paul Robeson, Yip Harburg. They either left the United States or had to go underground to find work. Some used pseudonyms to try to be able to get work. This is what the right wing did in this country, lest we forget. And by the way, you also had Joe McCarthy. Joe McCarthy also proposed doing things that Lauren Boebert talked about, or actually did things that Lauren Boebert was proposing. In fact, McCarthy had headed the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations back in 1953 and 54. During that time, he used his committee to hunt for his political enemies under the guise of, I'm hunting communism. Yes, I'm going after alleged communists in the government. That's what I'm doing. Now, he went after government employees, which is what Boebert was talking about, figures in the entertainment industry, again, academics, left-wing politicians, and of course, labor union activists. He even investigated the army, including an army dentist, which was such an outrageous scandal that it led to his official censure. Now, Lauren Boebert, she wants to become the next Joe McCarthy. Well, she's definitely started off on the right foot by saying, oh yes, I want to create a government agency, big government, to go after and persecute my political enemies for speech that I don't like. By the way, I'm a principled conservative who loves free speech. Really? Really? But here's the thing. It's super hypocritical. Okay? Again, her beef with Ilhan Omar, and this is what frustrates me about Democrats as well. They piled on Ilhan Omar too for having legitimate criticisms of the right-wing government of Israel and their repeated human rights violations. The Democratic Party did not defend Ilhan Omar against the far right, and they refuse. Now, they did call out in the most recent spat with Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene versus Ilhan Omar, they did kind of defend her a little bit, but overall, the Democratic Party seems to be trying to placate the far-right members of this group. And obviously, you can see, no matter where you are in the Democratic Party, it doesn't matter to them. If given a chance, Lauren Boebert would Joe McCarthy you. No, we think you're a communist. They're calling Joe Biden a communist. Joe Biden, the decidedly least left-wing politician, well, I'm not saying politician, but least left-wing president that we have, and certainly was the most right-wing candidate during the 2020 primary. I mean, the whole thing is just really hypocritical, messed up, and just factually incorrect. But it really does illustrate how Lauren Boebert doesn't understand both the law or America and freedom. They booed Trump at his rally the other night. He said he had the booster, and then all he said back was no, 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 no. Yeah, I showed you that video. I don't know if you saw that, but yeah, I covered that yesterday, I believe, on yesterday's show or the day before. Not sure, but if you haven't already, check that out. Hilarious good times making fun of Trump. Okay. Speaking of the Democratic Party, I'm going to be criticizing Joe Manchin. Because of course I am. But giving a little bit of credit to the media. Interesting. Okay. It appears that corporate media might be starting to catch on about money in politics. So now, of all places, CNBC out with a new article that talks about Joe Manchin getting massive donations of corporate money ahead of the decision to kill Build Back Better, which was, of course, Joe Biden's $1.7 to $2 trillion spending plan of human infrastructure. So now the report states that Manchin, his leadership PAC called Country Roads, oh yeah, well, they're going to take him home, all right, right to the bank, received 17 different contributions from corporations in October and 19 just last month, according to a CNBC analysis of FEC Commission filings. None of the 4 months prior to October saw as many corporate contributions. Gee, I wonder what he was doing in that time. What was he doing during that time, before this? And then what was he doing in October and November to get so much corporate donations? What was he saying? Was he trying to water down and destroy Biden's human infrastructure agenda? No, it couldn't be. Oh, couldn't be. Oh, wait, it is. Now, the White House had unveiled its framework for the bill, dubbed Build Back Better, in October, included about $550 billion to battle climate change by investing in green technologies, writes CNBC. Manchin, a conservative Democrat who has profited from his links to the coal industry, opposed key climate provisions in the legislation. So far, true. And again, CNBC. What would be even more surprising if it were written in the Wall Street Journal? Now, where's Washington Post, New York Times? I don't know about that. And forget cable news. But now, more information from the report. In November, the Country Roads PAC received corporate contributions ranging from $2,500 to $5,000. Donors included financial giants such as American Express and Goldman Sachs, aerospace and defense leader Lockheed Martin, health insurance companies United Health Group and Blue Cross Blue Shield, and natural gas company CNX Resources. The PAC raised over $110,000 in November. Country Roads also raised over $150,000 in October from corporate donors such as Verizon, Union Pacific, Wells Fargo, and PACs tied to the coal and mining industries. Manchin, a conservative Democrat, represents West Virginia, which overwhelmingly voted for President Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. The state is a key location for the fossil fuel industry. So now, of course, they don't necessarily mention the corruption component of this, but again, that's asking too much of corporate media, how the donations make it corrupt. But without coming out with that insinuation, if you read the article, it's obvious that the donations from these corporations to this PAC absolutely led him to voting to kill Build Back Better. Or not even voting, because there wasn't even a vote, but just saying, no, I'm not going to vote for it. All right. So now, they also added this. Corporations, business leaders, and outside groups have pressured Manchin to oppose key parts of the Democratic administration's agenda ever since his party gained a slight majority in the Senate following the 2020 election. The Koch network, for example, has lobbied Manchin to oppose key elements of the legislation, the climate change stuff, while billionaires such as Nelson Peltz and Ken Langone have cheered him on as he moved against his own party. Langone said he plans to host a fundraising event for the West Virginia lawmaker who is running for re-election in 2024. Jonathan Cott, who once worked for Manchin as a communications advisor and is now a lobbyist, gave $2,500 to Manchin's leadership PAC at the end of November. Cott started lobbying for energy giant ExxonMobil in the third quarter after he was hired by Capitol Council earlier this year. So all of that money. Now, what did Joe Manchin spend the money on? Well, some of it, of course, went to his political coffers, to run his political campaign. But a pretty big chunk of that just went to hotels and travel, as they explain. In November, the leadership PAC spent over $40,000 at the Greenbrier, a luxury resort in West Virginia, which is owned by the family of Republican Governor Jim Justice, who was formerly a Democrat, by the way. The November FEC filing says the money was used for catering, lodging, food, and beverages. In October, the PAC spent over $1,000 on travel for Manchin's son, Joe Manchin IV, according to that month's filing. The Intercept also reported that Manchin's son has leadership roles at the companies with ties to the West Virginia lawmaker. Of course, the Intercept had reported, if you go into depth into that report, that the companies that Manchin had founded were turned over to his son, but that Manchin still has investments and stock in many of those companies, making up to about $4.5 million during his since he had been in the Senate. So that's a lot of money. In fact, he makes almost $500,000 a year in just in those stocks. And so, investment. All right. Now there's more. Let's see. The PAC also spent another $1,000 to Sawgrass Marriott, a golf resort in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, and over $2,000 on catering an event at RPM Italian, a restaurant in Washington, D.C. The PAC also spent just over $10,000 that month as a deposit for another event at the Greenbrier. They really, really like the Greenbrier. I bet it's very, very nice. But who's got $40,000? Not I, not you and I. So, we don't have that money. But he does. Now, the purpose of the thousands of dollars spent at hotels, meals, and travel, they say, is unclear. Is it, though? I mean, is it really unclear? And again, this is where they just fail to make that very, very essential connection. No, these corporations pulled together and gave him and his son bribes. That's it. Which then Joe Manchin used to go have fancy dinners, stay in nice hotels, and go golfing. That's what it is. And by the way, this is entirely legal. And how? How is it legal? It's because the same politicians that are getting paid deregulated and allowed corporate donations, along with the Supreme Court, of course, that basically allowed these companies and the rich to take over our government, to do corporate capture. And so now we're in a situation where you have billions of dollars pouring in from corporations to all of our, almost all of our politicians, and we're living under corporate rule. Now, CNBC also then explains that while leadership PACs are meant to help fund candidates running for office, a report from some nonprofit organizations says it appears that many lawmakers simply use the money at fancy resorts and restaurants, which again is exactly what they were doing. In fact, the report says this. Instead, such spending patterns give the impression that some politicians are simply raising money at one posh location to pay for the next fundraiser at the next fancy destination, creating an endless fundraising cycle at luxurious restaurants and resorts, much of which is paid for by special interest money, with no cost to lawmakers' own pocketbooks. Corruption. It's the corruption, and it's right in our face. That's why he killed Build Back Better. The corporations didn't want Build Back Better. They said, no, we don't want you to have paid time off. We don't want to have old people get hearing care. We don't want to have these investments in things to stymie climate change. No, we don't want any of that. We don't want anything that's going to impact our bottom line. We don't want to pay any more in taxes. And by the way, we want workers desperate to accept any sort of scraps that we offer them. That's what we want. To keep labor costs low and to have no regulations so we can dump our trash, our garbage, our pollution, wherever the hell we want without big government coming and telling us that we can't poison your water. That's what they want. That's what they want. And that's what they've been trying to do. And that's what they pay people like Joe Manchin to allow them to do. And by the way, Joe Manchin, as I mentioned before, has personal stake in this. Build Back Better would have actually targeted some of his precious income from fossil fuel investments, as well as, of course, hurt the donors. Now, the people in West Virginia, however, they're now hurt as a result of this, as a result of him saying no. And now he goes on and says, well, I care about the people of West Virginia, and I would have to go home and I'd have to explain to them why I voted for Build Back Better. No, you might want to go home and explain why you voted against some of the most incredibly popular policies, according to West Virginians. Look, a majority of West Virginia voters support Build Back Better. 68%. And that was, by the way, that was a $3.5 trillion plan. Even a majority of Republicans, 56%. So, come on. The people want it, but the bosses don't. And that's who runs the show. The miners themselves, by the way, the coal miners, the coal unions, they're like, yes, build back better. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. But the bosses said no. And Joe Manchin is paid by the bosses, by the big corporations. And so, again, the only people that this bill is not popular with are the corrupt and the corruptors. That's how it works in Washington. And by the way, the media is so close, but just fails to openly say that connection, to say that Joe Manchin is corrupt and that the system itself allows said corruption. Okay. Let's go to the last story here. Speaking of corruption, a Florida woman who had given birth was shocked to receive a $500,000 hospital bill. So now, B.C. Bennett, she had given birth to an infant son about 2 months premature. So look, he needed neonatal care, intensive care, and a lot of expensive procedures to be able to survive. Now, thankfully, he did. Now, at the end of that process, the hospital, Advent Health Orlando, had billed the insurance company originally approximately about $660,553 for Dorian, the son's NICU care. Now, so here's the thing. This family, the mother has insurance. The mother has insurance. In fact, through the employer, which, by the way, does property insurance. So she's familiar with how insurance billing works. Now, that's going to play into the story a little bit later. So now she had insurance. She goes into the hospital and she gives birth and all of that. And they go through that entire harrowing situation in which she's got to not only worry about how much it costs, but also her son. And the primary thing to be worried about, of course, is the son. So now they had insurance through Assured Partners. Now, according to a snafu, however, or what is called a snafu, the patient responsibility portion of the bill sent to the Bennetts was $550,124. It's about $500,000. But don't worry, they offered her an installment plan of just $45,843 a month for the next year. Oh, is that all? Oh, is that the okay, wow. No problem. Sure, I can swing that. No, most people can't. I mean, not unless they're Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. For everyone else, that would ruin you. Absolutely ruin you. I mean, again, who's got that kind of money? No regular person does. So now the plan was apparently generated by the hospital's automated billing system. Now, look, I've talked about in a separate story rampant use of algorithms that hospitals use to upcharge patients. And so that's sort of a different system. So they'll use this software and they'll try to calculate the cost, but then they'll sometimes add a 625% upcharge. Now, the whole purpose of that is to get the insurance companies to pay more to the hospital so that the hospital can make a profit. And so now how it normally works is that you go in and you get your medical care and you pay your copays and deductibles, whatever. But the insurance company then has to haggle with the hospital in these these inflated upcharges to try to bring them down as the hospital tries to get the most money that they can out of the insurance company, who then, of course, sends the cost down to the rest of us who have to pay premiums that are incredibly expensive, which, by the way, now, under the ACA, the government has to pay some of that upcharge because they're offering to help with premiums under the ACA plans. Now, for people who don't have insurance, guess what? You just get screwed, just overall. But even with insurance, we're all still getting screwed. So now, all right, let's get to more details about this. So now a spokesperson from the hospital, David Breen of Advent Health, did not answer Kaiser Health News' questions about the billing software and why something like this did not get flagged. You would think that a payment plan for $45,000 a month would get somebody's attention. Like, hey, wow, this seems a little strange. But again, as I told you, this is all automated. There were no humans involved. And so here you go. You have this massive charge that nobody sees, nobody reviews. And by the way, nobody fixes. We'll get to that. Now, she had insurance. I keep stressing this because this is important. So now the insurance, baby Dorian was born in 2020. All right, right at the end, but needed hospital care into 2021. Now, at that time, it just so happened that Miss Bennett's employer shifted their healthcare plan to a different company in January of 2021. So now she technically still had insurance, but because they switched on her, again, she didn't switch it. She didn't change insurance companies. The company she worked for changed insurance companies. But now the bill, which was sent to both companies, both of them decided, I'm not going to pay it. No. Obviously, there are charges here, and we weren't covering this person, this baby, during that time. So I'm not going to pay it. That's what both companies said. So now you have neither insurance company doing what they're supposed to do, or theoretically paying this bill. So then it just comes down to Ms. Bennett. Hey, here's your $500,000 bill. Enjoy. But don't worry, you can make 12 easy payments of $45,000. You know what it ended up taking? It actually took about a year of calls and a reporter to get the problem fixed. And by the way, this is just this problem. The systemic problem is not fixed. But why did it take so long? Now, as I, again, explained, both insurance companies didn't want to pay the bill. And more details about that. In 2020, Dorian was covered under a United Healthcare plan, which for in-network providers, because she made sure, being in insurance as she is, she knew how the system worked. So she made sure that the doctor and the hospital were all in-network. They were all supposed to be in-network. So, here it is. Okay, we made sure we covered our bases, that this is going to be fine. It wasn't fine. Now, under her plan, which hadn't changed, just a company change, she had a $6,000 deductible and $6,000 out-of-pocket maximum for the family. But as I said, they changed from its third-party administrator of self-funded plans from United Health to UMR. Although UMR is owned by United Healthcare, the companies did not communicate about the case, and both had refused to pay for the premium. So that makes it even more insane. One company is owned by the other company, and yet both companies are like, no, we don't want to cover this at all. This is insanity. In fact, here's what she said when she had called them to try to figure this whole thing out. She said, they're in charge of billing, and I shouldn't be the one having to tell them bill my one insurance for dates in 2020 and bill my other insurance for dates in 2021. But I did, and I ended up having the same conversation over and over and over. It took a year, almost a year, for them to fix it. All the way up until October for them to fix it. And that's only happened when a Kaiser Health News reporter had tried to talk to them about the bill, to challenge them over it. Hey, we're going to do a story on this. It took that, the possibility of negative press, to get this company to go, oh shit, we should be doing what we're supposed to do and actually cover this person who, by the way, she pays the premiums. Her job pays premiums to these insurance companies to do this. But they decided, nah, I just want to keep the money. I just want to keep the money. Give it to me, give it to me. But thankfully, after UHC and UMR had reprocessed, meaning they actually did the job, the 2020 and 2021 claims, the original bill of more than $550,000 was knocked down to just $300, meaning they knew that they effed up and were forced to do something about it. You know, maybe it's because there are so many people out there calling for Medicare for all, or at the very least a public option, and saying we should get rid of insurance companies because they're screwing us over. They're screwing us over. And they're like, oh God, well, we don't want the story to get out. Well, too late. Too bad, so sad. The story is out. Because this is an obvious failure, not just of this insurance company, but of the entire system that incentivizes snafus for this to happen. And again, this woman did everything right. Everything was in network. Doctor was in network. Hospital was in network. She was covered by insurance. She even informed them, hey, look, my employer's changing insurance companies. This is who you should send the bills to. It wasn't any fault on her end. No, it was a fault on the insurance companies, and generally a fault on the system itself. And it just really, actually, you know what? I take that back. The one thing that she did wrong was the cardinal sin. And that's actually trying to use your insurance company. To use your insurance, the stuff that you pay for. They hate that. They love it when you're paying them premiums. But they don't like it when, you actually have to use it. Oh my God, well, that takes away from the money that we could be making profits on. It just shows how our healthcare system, our health insurance system, should not be operated for profit. The entire thing needs to be trashed, scrapped, and started over. Because it encourages insane computer markups that lead to outrageous bills. And by the way, it's also that these hospitals and insurance companies can make as much profit as possible. That's why you get the profit motive out of healthcare for good. You do so by making sure that you have publicly funded hospitals and publicly funded insurance. Medicare for all, not for profit. That is the only way to go. And if you're one of those people that are concerned, but what about my doctor? I'm going to lose access to my doctor if I have Medicare for all. No, because under a Medicare for all system, every doctor has to, or else they're not going to be able to get paid. And that is why, of course, unfortunately, many wealthier doctors are against this. Whereas if you ask a lot of medical professionals, as I have, and I realize this is anecdotal evidence, so take it as you will, they all agree that we need a single-payer national healthcare system, national health insurance system at the very least, because the cost of healthcare is just absolutely unmanageable and insane. Medicare for all. All right. that's all I got. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Really, really appreciate it. Tempedan 918 says, my job is benefit administration. I'd love to lose my job because of Medicare for all. Yeah. Paige Lar says, no company is going to admit their mistakes, even when confronted. And that's also a good point. Let's see. Oh, shoot. All right. Good timing. You need to rest. The booster is winning this run. Yeah, look, Ravaging Wolverine, I've been there. Okay, I got the booster on Friday, and I was basically passed out on Saturday. So, yeah, I understand. When I get sick, and it's very, very rare that I get sick, I just pass out for the day. Like, I go to sleep. So I sleep it off, and that's what I do. And so when I got the booster, chills, headache, and just tired. So I slept the whole freaking day. But I felt better. So hopefully you have a similar reaction where, you just sleep it off and you feel better the next day. I took some classes on medical billing. All it takes is a decimal out of place or secondary code to mess things up. Also, if a biller accidentally codes a cancer diagnosis instead of a knee pain, a life insurance policy could deny your claim. It happens more than you think. Yeah, look, and again, that's why this is so complicated. And the other thing too is that how much time is wasted, for doctors and medical professionals having to call up and negotiate treatments with health insurance companies, whose entire job, by the way, is to try to deny as many claims as possible so that they continue to make more money. The whole system is absolutely disgusting and wrong and should be just burnt to the ground. Restart it with a national health insurance system. Okay. Anyway, let's raid in here on Twitch, by the way. So we're going to do a TYT raid into the Twitchuation room. So if you're interested, stick around for that. Let's see. Dango Bango says the Rapture also states 377 virgin men of the first branch of Abrahamism not only inherit the Holy Land, they convert to evangelicism, and they preach to the survivors of the Holy War. That sounds horrible. Madi Darno says your show's more than some of its parts. Changes lives, maybe save some. Keep going. Thank you. I think you overestimate my effect, but if I change or help one person, it really does make it all worth it. But I'm not going to claim that I'm some, huge life-changing or saving force. I just try to do what I can to put out a progressive, honest message. But I really appreciate that you think so very highly of me. And so I don't feel like I'm worthy of it, but thank you. I appreciate it anyway. So truck driver petition is at 4,703,293. That's awesome to see. Let's see some justice. Let's see some justice on that. All right. Anyway, thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, everybody. And error barring, barring any errors or any issues, tomorrow's show should also be on time. And so, all right. Oh, he was 91. He's probably not even here because the raid just went through. But first time viewer, what time is the, I've been curious for what long time. What time is the show? I'm assuming you're asking. It's 4 p.m. Eastern normally, when everything goes well, normally. But anyway, we'll see you all. We'll see you all later. Love you and have a good night.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
I have not loved this conversation.
are some whores in this town.
Beta!
There's insanity in the control room.
Please clap.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.